We are live! Welcome to Bxb'S, Bits and Bobs, episode 10. Our first proper, anniversary milestone, guys.
Aww.
10 episodes.
10.
20 weeks.
Crack out the beers.
Do you know what that is, guys? That's a perfect 10.
Is it really?
There's a little wrestling reference, but that'll be it for the wrestling, because we're going to try and be good. There is still talks of potentially doing a wrestling podcast, which I think we'd all like to do, and I'm talking to my friend who connects us, so maybe that will happen, but, you know, we're not going to do that. We're going to straight into the show. This is another one without the script. I did actually think of doing a bit, guys, where I would write a script and send it to you, and then we could have done, like, a script reading at the top of the episode, but do you know what? I then went, oh, man, that's, like, effort.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I didn't do it. Sorry. But yeah, no show notes. But my God, I didn't lie, did I, when I said the games were coming?
You did not.
I did not make that up. So I just want to say, we had the biggest influx of codes in Bxb, and I think probably Xbox before that history. We got 28 video games in one day. For a team of about, at the best, 7 guys, on and off. That's like, fuck! That's a lot of codes, right? And I know first world problems and all that shit, and we're very, very grateful, obviously, and we will get around to talking about most of these things. But yeah, that's crazy, man. That's just a lot of games. That's a lot of games, all at once.
It's a hell of a lot of games, and I think you've even keeping a lot for yourself, not in a selfish way, but just because of logistics, there's still loads and loads to go around. I think I'm sitting on 5 I've got to do at once. So yeah.
You've knocked a few out. I mean, you've brought down your...
Well, what? I've done one.
You've done
One's
one.
finished.
Great. Oh,
So
I'm disappointed to hear that, Richard. You should try harder. I've done about...
I actually finished my game.
I've actually...
Yeah, but your definition of finished is insane.
Yeah, like every achievement point. Yeah, you crazy motherfucker. Yeah, so lots and lots of games. So that means we've got lots and lots of games to talk about today as well. I am your host. See, I remembered a bit earlier this time. I am your host, Ben Hall, the editor-in-chief of Bxb Games. With us today is also the PC reviews editor, Adam Breeden. Hello. And our reviews editor, Richard Worrell.
Is that what we do now?
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Just want to make like a noise of recognition, but like not talk.
I'm sensing not a lot of interesting T-shirts today, guys. What's going on?
No. Plain black T-shirt.
Mate, you've misread me. I've got
It looks great.
Shadow Moses T-shirt.
That's
Shadow
cool.
Moses self-storage.
That's
Very
cool.
good.
I'm repping for my other favourite website that isn't BXB, which is Giant Bomb again today with my Luchador shirt. So yeah, I'm repping for those guys. But that's all I can do. And I couldn't be bothered to stand up completely. That's like my knees hurt. I've been working a lot recently, so I'm very tired.
You work in a comic store.
Yeah, but
I sit on a chair, don't you?
No, I don't. No, fuck off. That's not even close to what I do at the minute. I'm running around like a blue-ass fly all the time.
Just imagine you sat on like a stall tutting at people for picking up the wrong thing.
Worst comic ever.
Actually, see, the problem with that is like we actually want to sell things. So generally, if you behave like that, you achieve the opposite and go out of business, like most comic book shops do.
Yeah.
So, not to actually that. I can ask you a quick technical question, guys, because heads up to the audience. This is our first time using YouTube Live's backend for this Google Hangout, so things have changed a little bit, though it does seem to be mostly the same. Am I breaking up on your end as much as I seem to be breaking up on my own?
No, not
actually.
any problems. Your room's still yellow, but otherwise fine.
Yeah, smooth as anything.
Cool. All right, that's good to know because I'm getting weird distortions on my own feed, which is, and you both look lovely. Lovely. We could have tested this out, but that's just not how we roll at BXB. We're seat of our pants. That's kind of our motto, isn't it? Like, how have you guys been anyway? What have you been up to the last couple of weeks? I know Richard was out running again today because he's a fucking idiot middle-aged man. I'm
still on my 30s. That's not middle-aged yet, is
Isn't
it?
that middle-aged? I'm in my 30s. I feel like I'm fucking an old man all the time. How can you? That's definitely middle-aged.
Which old man is this?
I'm feeling.
Oh.
Anyway, what have you been up to much?
So I've been working a lot. I've been making these video reviews, and I've been learning how to do video editing to a basic level. And then I think the most interesting thing that's happened to me this week was that last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a really good idea for a video game I want to make. And so I was up until about 4:30 writing a design document for that. And now I'm all kind of excited for it. And I need
awesome.
Sorry?
Wanted someone to translate
Yes,
Russian or something.
I need someone who can do me actual, accurate written Russian in the Cyrillic alphabet for the purposes of my idea, which unsurprisingly is in a kind of Cold War cyberpunk-y sort of format, because that is the only setting that all video games should be in.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, like, you know, you can have these ideas and you get excited about them for a week, and then the amount of work they're going to be to even bring to a playable form can sort of get intimidating. So, you know, I might lose interest in a week's time, but right now I'm kind of excited.
I think that's cool, man. That's really, really cool, actually. I'm glad you're, you know, I know you went, you know, you go through a bit dry spell and stuff, and you've not been doing the game stuff, so that's really cool that you're back on it. What about you, Rich?
Nothing that exciting. I'd like to make a game, you know. Maybe I should make a game. It'll be like Adam and Joe's Song Wars. We'll have Game Wars.
That would be awesome.
We should do a Bxb'S game jam.
Dude, let's do that. All right. After we've done this podcast, let's discuss that in more detail, because I think that's possible.
Okay.
We could do like really shitty, simple. No, I think, and then Ben can be like the judge or something. I think I can be really amusing. I am the judge, Simon. It'd be great.
I don't have time to make games, nor am I under any illusion that I could. So
you could.
I reckon I could, you know.
Stuff.
Yeah, I reckon anyone could, to be honest. Tools nowadays are so piss easy. Like, honestly, it's just any bum can. I
just wanted to point people at the top of the show as well. You know, we talked about this in the last show, but Adam is now doing a Let's Play series of Rimworld.
I am.
Every week, every Saturday. Episode 2 went up today. And I know he's got a bunch ready in the can, as it were. Yes. And I think he can't stop himself. He's got like hundreds. Also, by the way, Adam, you are the most anal video production person I have ever known. He basically will put a video up in the Dropbox and go, "All right, it's ready to go, Ben." And I'll have it downloaded and uploading onto the YouTube channel. He goes, "Actually, I've tweaked it a bit. Can I give you that one?" I'll just be like, "No, you can't. It's too fucking late."
Look, all I'm saying is, that cluster truck review, it would have been funnier if when PewDiePie's dog appeared, there was a little dog sound effect. That would have been funnier. Like, and I wanted to do it. That's all I wanted.
You guys, it's artists, isn't it? Artists always struggle to say when something is finished and actually move on from it. They're all the same. They always struggle. I know it. I mean, as somebody who used to write a lot of fiction, I know it was always difficult to say when something was finished or time to move on from. So I get it. But video production, especially on an amateur level, you've just got to be like fucking quick and dirty.
Yeah,
you know, that's what it's all about. Quick and dirty. That's my motto when it comes to my videos. It's always just like, look, let's just get to the point. I don't try anything fancy. I give you the info. I fucking talk about a game. I show the game. Bam, in your face. Bam, in your face. Bam, in your face.
That's very
What's Richard?
I'm feeding Frank. He's
feeding
nagging
Frank.
me.
That's nagging you. Is that your pet name for your penis or your dog?
Do you feed your penis?
Well, I don't know. It looked like what you were doing. You look like you were looking at your crotch, like this.
Yeah, I had got a little tub behind the curtain. Now this is look.
This is revealing the greatest secrets of podcasting.
Frank's treats.
Well, there we go.
A little bit of bacon treat there, look. And
this is good. Do you know what this makes? This makes amazing radio. So please, let's keep doing this.
I thought this is why we do video, so I can show you dog treats.
Look, if you are only listening to the audio version, obviously this is like an extra. So please head over to the site and make sure you watch the YouTube video, because that's where the real good shit is. That's what, you know, dog treats, man. Richard's dog section, man. A whole nother podcast potentially there.
What have you learned from this lesson? If you see me messing with my crotch, just don't ask.
Next time, I will not. I promise. I will never ask again. Yes, anyway. So, I mean, like, for my part, beyond working and playing a lot of video games whenever I have a minute, I saw a film again. I saw Civil War again last night.
Did you?
It's fresh in my mind. Marvel Civil War. Yeah. Captain America, I should say. Civil War is what it's called.
Yeah.
I really like that film. I think that's a good movie. But
so how does it work second time through?
I thought it was a bit better, actually. I thought it was a bit better. I didn't hate it or anything in the cinema, but I think it works really well. When you compare it to DC's output, you're like, fucking hell.
Oh, yeah.
What are you guys doing? But yeah, it's just, I've always been a massive Captain America fan, and the way they portray Captain America in the films is so spot on. It just makes me incredibly happy to see. Yeah, Chris Evans just kills it. So
they've done such a good job because by rights, Captain America should be an absolute dick, right? Especially in Trump's America these days.
When you say a dick, what do you mean? Like boring, or do you mean a right-wing arsehole?
Yeah, right-wing arsehole, just nationalist dick. So, yeah, I actually like the guy.
They did do that with him when they did the Ultimate version. When Mark Miller made the Ultimate lines of comics, they made him like a super right-wing, French-hating, almost borderline Nazi in his own persona, which was because he was so extreme. But yeah, he came up with some great lines. Like at one point, he points to the A and goes, "What do you think this A stands for? France."
Not even going that far. I mean, like Kurt Angle level nationalist doofus. You know, he's proud of where he comes from. There's no sort of malice behind it. He's just a proud fool. And that's why I think imagine Captain America would be like.
But that's why Cap's so great, isn't he? Because he's not about politics. He's trying to embody the spirit, the ideal of an American, rather than, the idea of freedom and choice, of sticking to your convictions, of doing what's right regardless of the consequences. And that's why I've always found him one of the best heroes in comic books. He just and he's fallible, unlike I say a Superman, which has similar ideals. He's not like godlike, so that I could geek out about that for a while, but I won't. But yeah, so I guess really, unless you guys have much else to discuss, we should start looking at video games.
Video games, you say?
Video games. Now, I'm gonna mention one from the off here that has actually taken me away from reviews a little bit the last few days, and that is Destiny: Rise of Iron.
Oh man, I've not even played it yet. I've logged in and I've got my level 40 boost thing. That is it.
I was off work on the Tuesday it came out. So first of all, I had to suffer for 2 hours with Bungie's fucked up servers that didn't work, and they actually they did this queue system. I don't know if you saw this queue system, but it was like
I saw it at work.
Holy shit! Like what?
Steve, who writes for us, Steve Crocker, was I think he's on leave. He tells me he didn't book the week off.
He did.
Destiny.
He told me he did. He told me he did. Yeah, he actually told me he did. So I've dubbed him in. So he actually told me he had it off for Destiny. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
saw his irate posts on the day.
No, but mine was he had a relatively easy experience compared to me. I'm just saying that he did. So let me tell you my brief story of the queue. This was the first 2 hours of Destiny.
Queue stories now.
Come on. To the queue at 160,000, right? And I was like, whoa, that's a big number. But it got down to 100,000 quite quick. And then the server kicked me off. And I'm like, okay. And I got back on. And I came back on at 250,000. And I was like, fuck, that's a much higher number.
That's Destiny.
That's a very big number of players.
That's what Destiny is, right? Bigger numbers.
Bigger numbers. That's my light level.
That should have been that's the dream of a Destiny player.
I'm not even done yet. So I was like, okay, I'm now considering just putting this down and coming back in a couple of hours. But I thought, I'll see what happens. So I let it go on for a bit, and it got down to about 150,000, near where it was the first time, and then it kicked me off again. And I'm like, right, this is literally the last time. I'm going to try one more time. And I came back in, 350,000 in the queue. So my number's gone up again. It's exciting. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go get some lunch. This was about 11:30 now. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm not sitting here doing nothing anymore. I'm going to go do something. And I came back and it dropped down to about 100,000. And then all of a sudden it went quite quick and I was in the game. So, I was in the game by about 12. So it was 2 hours of problems, but I got in the game. But, hey, no, there's not been a problem since. So clearly there were some issues at the back end there, and they sorted it out.
More importantly, the game itself.
The game. Well, I didn't say more importantly, man. Destiny's all about the metagame. So I was winning that queue in. I won that queue hard. Come on. Headshotted that queue. No, the game itself, I don't think the content is on the surface quite as extensive as Taken King was. I think there's a lot of refinement, and obviously the raid has now come out, and I haven't tried the raid yet. And Steven is going to be doing some form of coverage for the site, because he is by far the most knowledgeable and by far the biggest fanboy. And I told him I said to him, look, just geek out on it, like, man, just go for it, like whatever you want to do. So there's going to be
pretty much played nothing else for 2 years.
No, he's huge into it, yeah. And obviously the light level's been increased, things like that, you know. And there's some new story. I did that in about 2 hours. There's new strike. That was kind of an interesting mechanic or two in there, and I quite like that. But it's more Destiny. At this point, you either like Destiny / love Destiny or don't give a shit, right? So it's like, you know, the camps are set. I like Destiny a lot. It's the setting of basically science fiction fantasy. So basically a narrative and a world which is very fantasy, but like pulled into a science fiction setting. I find it really enjoyable and really engaging, unlike, say, The Division, which I find dry, boring, and has completely kicked me out of any interest now, even though it's a very similar game. You know, and at its core, the shooting is still great. You know, it plays damn well, Destiny, and it always has. So
I pick you up on a point.
Go on.
You
can always pick me up, Richard. You know that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The idea that camps are set, I'm not so sure about that, because Taken King, anecdotally, brought in a bunch of new people.
As did this.
Turned off from the original game because it frankly wasn't finished. But Taken King was a lot better. I'm guessing that with this final collection, and we know it's the last DLC to come for Destiny, don't we? I'm guessing that there'll be people who think, well, that's it, it's set. I can jump on board and not be worried about having to fork out another 30, 40 quid in a few months' time to keep it going. This is it.
Perhaps, but I think a lot of these players are people that are lapsed players rather than coming in for the first time. These are people that maybe had it year one, maybe tried Taken King, maybe fell away, you know, that haven't been like sticking with it regularly. I just don't see a lot of genuinely new players getting into this game. I really don't. I think it's quite telling that Bungie have dropped 360 and PS3 support. So the only way to play this is on the next gen consoles. You know, so that's going to increase numbers as well, somewhat artificially from that mechanic. I would have thought from doing that. So there was a huge spike in users, obviously, and they've made a fuck ton of silly money, Activision and Bungie, out of this. I think what we're seeing with Rise of Iron is the limitations of the basic framework of that game. That you can't do necessarily what Bungie really wants to do with the game because, as we know at this point, the problems with their production pipeline, the problems with the back end of Destiny, that was rushed and broken and barely functional when they launched it. Somehow it became, I think, a really good game, but it's an evolution. It's been interesting to watch, and now that we're at the end point almost, you can kind of look back at it, read the articles, the in-depth things that Kotaku and Polygon have had on it and stuff like that, and Engadget, and really just be like, and Eurogamer, and just be like, wow, that's crazy. How did that even happen? How did they actually make that out? Testament to Bungie to be able to release something after about 8 months of development that was playable, you know? So I'll give them that, but, you know, it is restrictive. It's like, one thing I was like, playing this new content, I was like, it's quite samey. I mean, it's like you've already been to the Cosmodrome loads, right? And this is an extension of that environment, basically. You're still in that same part of Earth. And it all looks kind of like that, and it doesn't feel as fresh as the Dreadnought did in Taken King. It just doesn't, and it's a little bit disappointing because of that. There's just not as much freshness. I mean, the world, the Plaguelands, the open sort of environment for the patrol missions it's quite big, but it's not massive. I mean, the fact that you're on your Sparrow for a lot of it means you can get around it a lot quicker than you can the Dreadnought. So I think that makes it feel smaller. I think they're going to do quite a lot with it. I don't think everything that's there right now is all we will see with it. I think we'll get some evolution and new missions pop up and new things can be added. And as we've seen in the past, that's something Bungie does. But at the same time, I wasn't like wowed by it. I enjoyed the story. It's kind of typical sci-fi fantasy bullshit. I mean, it is really bullshit, like the actual plot. And like I said, it's just starting to show the limitations of the game. And I think clearly Bungie are massively into development of Destiny 2. And fingers crossed, that's going to be the thing that really shows us what they've always wanted it to be.
Is it physically smaller than Taken King then? I mean, the Dreadnought was quite a chunky area, but you paid for it. It was a 40 quid expansion. This is, what, 25, 30? So
I can't remember. Honestly, I couldn't remember the costs, to be honest, off the top of my head. And it is cheaper, isn't it? You're right. But It does feel smaller. It does feel slighter in scope. Yeah. I just felt like I did everything a lot quicker than I had with the expansion. It's like, and then I was talking to some guys, like, oh, you haven't done everything. You haven't done this thing and this thing. And they're always referring to the metagame. You know, they've built in this sort of achievement book inside the game for Rise of Iron, that sort of a checklist of things that, 200,000 of this, 100,000 of those, 1,000 of these, do that 100 times. And it's like, yeah, but that extends to, what you can do in the game. But it's not more content, really, is it? It's just telling you to do something repeatedly. I've enjoyed the exotic gun quest I've done so far for the Galahorn and that year 1 starter weapon you had when you first started the game, both of which are great weapons and really fun to play with. And that's what it is. That's why I keep coming back. Destiny is a great chill out, put a podcast on, do a few things, do a few strikes, shoot a few dudes, enjoy the mechanics of the game, because they are really, really good, really well polished mechanics. I just don't think there's anything particularly exciting about Rise of Iron.
Bowing out at the right time, then. It kind of needs a sequel at this point.
Oh yeah, desperately. Yeah, desperately. New locations, new, fresh, everything. Just newness. Keep those mechanics, keep the guns that work well, but let's see what you really can do, Bungie, now that you've had this extra time and stuff, So by the time the end of next year, this time next year rolls around, I'll be super hyped for Destiny 2. Oh yeah, big time. On my Scorpion.
Scorpio.
Or whatever they end up calling it, yeah. So I do look forward to that. But yes, Adam was very quiet. No experience.
I've never played Destiny, so I have nothing to add to it, really. The only thing I'd ever really say about Destiny is the day it came out, there was a bunch of guys in our office who were playing it, and I got to watch the sort of first section of it. And I don't think I've seen level design of that quality in a AAA game for a very long time. Like, the level design is, in terms of just it wasn't anything astonishing, but just every trick in the book to lead the player, and like the sort of structural level of it, like just the system by which the level design operated was immaculate. It was like, you could do training sessions just on that first section of Destiny, and it blew me away. I was really, really impressed with it. But that's about all I can say about Destiny, because I've never really played it.
I think that's a fair observation. I think what is there is surprisingly good, considering the problems they had and how they threw everything out, 8-9 months prior to release.
Yeah, it's funny that they initially started talking. Well, this is old news now; it's 2 years old. But they initially started talking about Destiny in terms of its scale, and it turned out to be much more about the polish they applied to a much more reduced set of areas and mechanics, really. So,
but then that's kind of Bungie's calling card, isn't it? I mean, Halo. Yeah. I always used to say, like, if you take the paper design documents for Halo, if you just look at the concept, it's the blandest game ever made. Who could ever give a shit about that? Space Marine shoots aliens. Well, brilliant. But Space Marine shoots the smartest aliens you've ever seen in a game before, with the best feeling weapons you've ever seen before, in a game that's paced to perfection. That's a 10 out of 10 game, and that's always been Bungie's thing.
I'm not sure about the pacing. Bungie have always had a problem with backtracking in games.
All right, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so the second half of Halo is problematic, but still, like, the 30 seconds of gameplay that it gives you, and then just doles out again and again and again and again.
30 seconds of fun. 30 seconds of fun. I feel like I've heard that one before.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, somebody else talk about things, because my throat is actually a bit sore tonight. So.
Can I talk about Recore?
Go on, then.
Go on. I want to know about Recore.
Review forthcoming very shortly, or else I will whip you to within an inch of your life.
I don't
know if it was on a podcast, but I said unkind things about Recore because it was completely overshadowed at E3 by the other robot game that made it look like a joke. So I'm interested to know how it sort of holds up.
What was the other robot game?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
The worst title.
Oh, that one. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, comparing it to that, I might be less flattering about it, but that's not out yet. So, Recore, I just wanted to give it some props, really, because there's a lot of bad vibe about it in the press since it was released last week. Full disclosure, it looks terrible. It initially feels not so great, and I did think I was going to hate it, and I could understand why they'd rushed it out for a £30 price point and kind of buried it. So initial impressions weren't good, but I'm still playing it, and I don't want to do a review yet until I've finished it because I'm enjoying it so much, and it's still doling out new gameplay experiences 10 or 15 hours in. So kind of one of those classic old N64, like maybe 360 era 3D platformers that you don't see so often nowadays. And it almost feels as if it's left over from like some GameCube unreleased games box, because it's from the team that did Metroid Prime, Keiji Inafune behind Mega Man, is that right? And you can tell it kind of feels really old, but in a good way. So if you think of something like Jet Force Gemini, where it's kind of futuristic, third-person shooter, lots of enemies to shoot, auto lock on enemies, and sort of combo mechanic to lock on and switch between enemies as you go. But the main point of it is the exploration side, like the best N64 games. So like Rare at their best, really. So it's all desert. The idea is that you're on this desert planet. It's being terraformed, but something's gone wrong. All of the robots that were doing the work, they're against you, apart from a small band of robots that are on your side that you use to help you navigate and fight against the bad robots. And there's just puzzles and different things to find everywhere. It might just be one long desert, but any review that I've seen talks about how it's just a constant grind of trying to fight the same old enemies over and over again to get more experience and level up, get more parts for your robots to make them more powerful for battle. And there is that to it, but it's not like Destiny where you're just doing the same thing over and over to get a result. The battles and the travel between areas is incidental to actual real gameplay. I haven't had to repeat virtually anything yet. It's all been new experiences in that 10 to 15 hours. And it's things like climbing mountains to find maybe elements to a multi-key lock to get into new tunnels and new dungeons. There might be different types of boss that you have to uncover and sort of unlock and battle within the deserts. Some of your robot companions have their own unique skills, so it's similar to Cameo in that way, where the big ape robot will be able to smash rocks out of the way. Others will be able to help you fly. There's a spider one that helps you travel across tracks, scurry across tracks, and go along massive sort of elevated aerial sort of rides. And there's just so much to it, and it just feels like a really old but really sort of unfinished, but at its core excellent 3D platformer. As I say, it seems like it was uncovered from the N64 days, but it still stands up,
Okay, I have read in multiple reviews the accusation of padding because there's not a lot of actual content and a huge amount of backtracking. But you're basically saying that's not true. No,
it's not true. I think the initial vibe is that it lacks content because every area looks the same. There's I think 4 areas. All of them are desert based. Thematically, it makes sense because it is sort of a dead world that is being terraformed, and that hasn't happened yet. So all of the areas should be desert. They're not massive. I mean, this isn't the biggest scale game I've ever played, but that feeds into what I'm saying about it being kind of an older N64/360 era game, where the areas are kind of contained. I mean, they're still reasonably big, but it doesn't feel like you're traveling this vast world. It feels like you're traveling 4 separate levels, but within those levels, you've got discrete dungeons. I still haven't been in half of them, not even half. There's loads to do, and there seems to be lots to find within them. Within each dungeon, there is scope to replay them as well. So you can go through for a time attack run. There's runs where you can try and hit every single there's key hitboxes throughout each of the runs where you've got to locate and shoot them with the correct color-coded weapon. You've got 4 different weapon types. And then a final one where you've got to find an elusive yellow key. and that will, all of these things will, at the end of the dungeon run, will unlock new items. So it'd be parts for your robots, or new cores which you'll use to unlock the final area of the game. And that's probably the most grindy bit of the game that reviews I've seen so far are complaining about, that when you get to the final stage, you have to sort of climb this tower to reach the final boss. I believe it's 5 levels. I'm up to level 4 at the moment, but for each one, you've got to go back out into the main game and find a whole load of new cores before you can be let in to progress. So the final stage of the game feels a bit staccato. It's like you lose momentum because you've got to go back out into the world and play the regular game again. But
so can you explain why that these other reviews might be taking it this way? I mean, because you sound diametrically opposed to one of the biggest criticisms that I've read from multiple sources. So I'm just curious, like.
I can only think that if I try and analyse my own feelings about it, having to review this game, there's a frustration that it feels like it's going to finish, and then it doesn't. You've got a shitload of more gameplay to get through. You enjoy it, but there's a lot more to get through. So as a reviewer, it's making me think, well, when am I going to get to do this? I need to turn this review in, you know? So I don't know if that's part of the problem with reviews so far, that people feel they should have been done with it already. And the perception of a £30 game where all of the areas are, at first glance, quite small, there's loads packed into it. It's absolutely stuffed with things to do. So as a gamer, as an actual player, I think it presents fantastic value. It's just frustrating that I can't write my review yet, you know?
Well, at this point, I'm not taking any more excuses, Richard. It'll have to be turned into... No, but that's really curious. I find that fascinating. I can't wait to read your review because, you know, that it just sounds like sometimes maybe, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, you know, that these guys are under a lot of pressure. They've obviously got a lot of games coming in, much like we do at the moment. Maybe sometimes, you know, they're maybe not the right person for it. Maybe they haven't got the right sort of connection to that subgenre of game like you do. And, you know, they're just not, you know, suited for it. So things come out a bit more negative.
Yeah, I mean, it might even just be judging it on face value as well. And just in terms of graphics, it does look awful, like seriously substandard. I mean, when I talk about it being reminiscent of old generation games, I don't just mean in design, the visuals as well. This could easily run on a 360 and wouldn't even be impressive on that platform. It looks really old.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at like videos of it while you were talking, and it was interesting to learn like the lineage of it, because it does absolutely. There's just something very GameCube-y about this. It looks so much.
It looks like a GameCube game, doesn't it? It just.
I suspect if we actually saw GameCube games, we'd disagree with that statement. But yes, maybe. I know exactly what you mean. And certainly, like, yeah, visually, it definitely sort of lets itself down. But like, just there's something about this third person kind of, it's not like a third person sandbox. It is kind of levelly, but definitely it's just got that real old school design sort of feel.
And it's got I haven't really talked about the gameplay loop of it yet and the whole mechanics of how you play, but the biggest concern I had going in was that if it's going to be an old school 3D platformer, anyone who was around in the early 2000s knows how bad that was. Just in terms of knowing where you're going to land, just positioning yourself properly. Early games in this genre were awful. But this gets around it quite neatly. You've got the old double jump trick, so it's much easier to gauge if you're not going to hit your final landing point as you thought you would. Just use your double jump and adjust. You've got a forward dash as well, which you can use to launch off platforms, then do a jump, do another dash, and then you've got another jump. So you've got quite a lot of flexibility in the standard moveset to move around in the air and be able to land effectively. You've also got a targeting reticule beneath you, so you know where you're going to land. So it's all quite well managed in terms of getting around. But the combat's really well designed as well. So as I say, you've got 4 different types of fire. Simple color coding blasts, all with the same ammo, and the ammo recharges. So you don't have to pick any ammo up or anything, but it's all about measuring how much you fire. You don't want to hold down the trigger. Taking measured shots while you lock on to a series of enemies and matching your coloured fire to the colour of the enemy to get the best effect. And actually taking enemies out, you've got quite a nice sort of choice between just taking them out, in which case you shatter their core and pick up the shards, or you can try and rip their core out while they're still alive. And there's kind of like fishing style, like Zelda fishing mini game where you latch onto their core, and the cord that you're grappling against them with changes color depending on the tension, and you've got to make sure that you don't break the cord before you pull the core out. And it's just really, really neat. So you've got this this cool little choice between whether you smash them up and get the parts, because you might want to use those parts to create new blueprint items for your robot upgrades, or if you rip out the core, then you can upgrade the sort of base core of your robot rather than the parts that surround it. So there's quite a big metagame around leveling up your different robots and making them more individual. It's really good.
Wow, cool, man. So keep an eye on the website for the full review in the next few days, sort of thing, probably, because Richard's slow.
Slow but good.
Slow but good, definitely. That's what his wife says as well. So, come on. I couldn't not. I just couldn't not. You know what I'm like. Right. You played something else though, didn't you? I've forgotten.
For review?
Yeah.
I've played a bit of Claire, the extended
I thought it might be something else. I can't even remember what else you've got at the minute. I know I gave you a lot, and I was like, I got so many.
And I haven't played the others yet because I'm getting through Recall first.
That's cool. That's cool.
Next is The Witness. I've played a bit of Dear Esther this week.
The Witness. Fucking hell. Yeah, that's not a small game. So
I don't think I'll be finishing that one.
You're more likely to come up against a very difficult wall before you have to think about, time and stuff like that. You'll be stopped by puzzles and that, I would have thought. Dear Esther, though, we can talk about Dear Esther a little bit because Lynn did a review for us. Really nice, short review, which I really enjoyed reading, actually. And
it was good.
It was really, really good and really to the point. And I played Dear Esther, like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, on PC. So the memory is a bit faint, but I do remember loving it. And I've pretty much loved the walking simulator genre of video game since then, actually. Then they were kind of the first, weren't they? Chinese women, Dear Esther. It was one of the very early ones.
This is kind of the weird thing about it getting like a release on consoles now, is that it's actually 8 years old. And yes, as far as I know, it invented walking simulators. So like,
is it that old? Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was in Half-Life 2 mod. Like,
that's right. He's right.
Wow.
And so like, when I played it, I was blown away by it. But one of the reasons it blew people away was that you were kind of like going, oh my God, video games can be this. They can just be these kind of low-key narrative experiences without gated content behind skill tests. Like, you can just make an experience and just let people experience it once and they're done. How that game holds up now that like there's a million other examples of it, and there's Firewatches and Gone Homes and all this, like I just can't imagine. I can't imagine it particularly holds up. It's like kind of going, I'm really into rock music, so let's go and listen to the first band to ever pick up electric guitars. Like, all right, it might be interesting, but it's probably very good.
So, Richard,
I haven't finished it yet, but from what I've played, it does hold up because the idea is so simple. When you talk about the first rock musicians, music develops, right?
Yeah.
It picks up new influences. It changes over time. Walking, not really.
All right, fair enough.
And that's all it is. It literally is moving about, and you've put any other button. You can use a button if you want, and it kind of zooms in a little bit for no real reason. But it's just about walking through. So totally stands up. And the only thing that would undo the impact, I guess, is how it looks. And I'm presuming that they've jazzed it up a bit for this new edition because it looks fine.
Wow, really?
It doesn't look amazing, but it's fine.
At the time, it looked mind-blowing. It was one of the prettiest experiences you could have on a computer. It was incredible. So, fair enough.
Well, let's do. Well, as we're in Walking Simulator, I also reviewed the Xbox One version of Firewatch in the last couple of weeks, and that game is still fucking awesome. I don't have the problems Adam had with the ending, which is why, though you can't really compare the reviews because back then we were on a 10-point system. So it might be a case, I don't know, if Adam
I probably would give it 5 stars. Yeah.
You would have given it 5 stars. Okay, so it's the same score I gave. I was going to ask you, I was curious, because of course we're on a different system now.
But
so
also I think, like, I wrote the review just after finishing it, and it does end on a serious down note, and so I think, I probably wasn't in the happiest place. I think I was probably a point short of what I should have been. Because it was a nice game.
I don't have the problem with the ending as much because of partially my view of it now has been tarnished or enhanced. You can take that however you want. From reading about the game a lot, reading a lot about the development, and also now in the new Xbox One version, I believe being patched into PC and PS4 version as well, is this awesome, like a museum walking tour that the developers give you, because it's not the same as just regular audio commentary. Because you go around, it's so cool. There are these kiosks that they put throughout the game, which have a little tape on it. And you pick up the tape and you put it in your cassette player and you listen to them. It could be the developer, the writer, the lead artist. It could be the voice actors, telling you very specifically about that place you are in at that moment in relation to the story beats of that moment. And you go through them in order. And it's really cool, man. I love that behind the scenes stuff. And when it comes to like a little indie experience that's as so narrative driven as this and so art based as this, and it's so much reliant on that voice acting, that really finding out about how the sausage is made it really added another layer to me for the experience. I fucking loved it. But I'm a massive gaming nerd and that stuff turns me on. So what can you do?
Do you know what's happening about the Xbox One release? Because
it's
not
okay.
on there.
No, it's not. I got given a heads up about that just prior. Well, it was weird. When I got the code from them, they basically sent this email and they were like, in the email it was like, fucking European shit's delayed. It's a pain in the ass. We're really sorry. It's a last minute license / Peggy / rating bullshit or something to that effect. And weirdly, it happened with the PS4 version as well. There was a delay between the European PS4 release, I think, of this game. No, I'm confused. I apologize. I was thinking of Gone Home. That's what I was thinking of. Gone Home had a strange delay between the two releases. Now, it is due out at the end of the month. The 30th of September is the date I was given in that email on the European side of things. And I can't recommend it enough. And I will, I'll retweet the review and stuff around that time to remind people probably, because it's one of those games that's a strong contender in my mind as top 5 game of the year, kind of right up there. When we do our Game of the Year podcast in January or so, which you guys can look forward to, it's not that far off. It's gonna be in my list, that's for sure. I absolutely fucking love it, and it's such. I mean, Adam obviously did a big review of it, and I did the video review, and I talk about it in more nebulous ways than Adam's written review, where he's more specific. But basically, it's this incredibly personal journey of this character that you inhabit, and the way that game starts, man.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't think it was going to get me again, but like it's an interactive Twine story that if you're married or have a significant other, or if you've ever been in love and you can put yourself in that position, it's just the most heartbreaking thing.
It's the audio that does it, I think. I think it's the audio. Yeah. It's a massive work of design the way that game starts, because it is just like little lines of text on a screen and a little choose your own adventure story. It should not have emotional impact, and yet somehow, I don't know anyone who's played through that section and not ended up actually kind of like, sniffing and trying not to cry. Like, it's incredible.
It isn't. That's what's so clever about it. It isn't just the words, because it's intercut with his sort of hike to the Firewatch station where it's going to be based. So you have these gorgeous visuals, which are kind of heartbreaking in their beauty, compared to in conjunction with this heartbreakingly sad story. And it's just like you're taken on this emotional journey, and then you're listening to the audio tour about how this game came together in bits. That it was barely an experience until just prior to release, and it all fell together into this, I think, really brilliant cohesive whole. And I like the ending. I like the choices they made with the ending, and it's not supernatural and it's not weird, and it is grounded. And I know it kind of comes out of nowhere a little bit, and they had to shoehorn it in, but I'm glad they chose to make it grounded and real. and not, you know, fucking ghosts or mind control or whatever.
Sure.
You know?
My main issue with it is that it's completely implausible. It sets up this elaborate, complex mystery, and then the solution to it all is just so basic. It's like a Deus Ex Machina in reverse. It just annoys me.
Well, what can you say? That guy had a lot of time on his hands.
He must have done.
You know what I mean? A lot of time.
You know,
a lot of time.
Apparently a Star Trek teleportation device.
Hey, look, he had some shit in that cave, man. Who knows what he was doing? Like, there was some shit in that cave, but I'm not going to spoil. Richard, you've not played it at all yet, no?
No, I haven't. I will be getting it.
No, please do, because I think it'll be great if we can all talk about that, you know, next year with the frame of Game of the Year in mind, because I think it's a really strong contender, because it's so cool. Yeah, I fucking love a good walking simulator, guys. You know, that's a game that focuses on narrative, a game that focuses on just the story and the characters and the art. It doesn't have to all be about shooting, does it? That's what we have to acknowledge.
I love them as well. They're just such no pressure, high delivery genre. Yeah. You get so much for your money without having to put in too much effort. You just experience it, you know.
Yeah, and they feel so mature. It's always like, you know, I mean, it's a trite point to make nowadays, but mature gaming so often means incredibly juvenile, childish gaming. And then you have these experiences that talk to you like an adult and treat the player's time like it's worthwhile. And they're very interesting. It's a very interesting line of gaming to explore.
Yeah, it is mature in the sense that it doesn't have to prove anything. It's not trying to justify itself. It just, you know, it's just delivering this experience, take it or leave it. But it's really great for people who want to buy into it. I don't know if anything's going to top Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, which is still my favourite one. I absolutely love that game.
That's the one I've sat my fucking PS4 and I need to play it. Every time you bring it up, it reminds me. It reminds me because I love that genre, like you said. So yeah,
I so dearly wish you two had gaming PCs. Beginner's Guide. The Beginner's Guide is a walking simulator, and it's actually quite hard to recommend because I think if I had a time machine, I might consider going back in time and stopping myself from ever playing it, because I think that game damaged me. I think it actually hurt me on some like profound, permanent level. I cannot describe for 1 second the effect of the Beginner's Guide. It's just it's like a hand grenade in your brain. It's incredible.
It's the Stanley Parable guy, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's amazing. I remember hearing really good things about it, and I don't think you need a massively impressive rig to play it.
No, you don't. No, it's all Source Engine. Like it runs on. If your PC runs Half-Life 2, it runs it. Well, then play it seriously. Play it.
I'll pick it up. Definitely.
Also, because I need someone else to talk to about it, so that we can, you know, comfort and therapy each other.
Let me just put these 10 games that I've got to review to the one side here, and I will play that game. Yeah, no.
Oh, awesome.
It's that time of year, sadly. It's just the way it is.
I know.
So from one mature, in-depth, grounded experience of incredible, you know, import and beauty to another, an Adam's review of Cluster Truck, which has a great title. I love that name.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's a good name.
It's a really good name. Unlike Horizon Zero Dawn, that's how you make a title.
I'm pretty sure they thought of the title before the game.
I think so.
And more importantly, before we talk about Cluster Truck, go watch Adam's review of Cluster Truck. He works through some very important issues. And it's very, very funny and very entertaining. But it's not spoiled. Can you talk about Cluster Truck without spoiling your video review? Because I feel like people should.
I think so. Yes. I mean, so the one thing I'll say is the reason that I went in that direction with the review is because there is one line in there that I will now spoil, which is that I do think Cluster Truck is sort of unreviewable. Like, you watch a minute's footage of Cluster Truck, you now know everything about this game, and you know if you like it, and you know how it feels to play it. And like, there's no job for a reviewer here at all. It is the most simple, high-concept gaming you'll ever see. There's a bunch of trucks. They drive down a level. You jump on the tops of them. If you ever touch the floor, it's game over. And you've got to still be on the top of the truck come the end of the level. And the levels have things in them that fuck the trucks up. Like, that's it. End of review. Like, the game's just silly. And what's nice about it is it's one of those sort of classic kind of respawn die games. You keep trying, you keep dying. You get to jump back into the game in literally no time at all. I mean, in fact, you can literally respawn before you've died. Once the game knows that you're going to fail, you can hit the respawn key and start again. And it's a single frame and you're back into it. So you just never stop jumping on the trucks and trying to live till the end. And the game's ropey in about 25 different ways. It feels incredibly kind of homebrew and amateurish. I don't think there's a lot of like sophisticated development gone into this. I think it was probably made very quickly, but it's got bags of charm and it's just really fun. And actually, as you do get like further into it, the level designs get kind of clever, and it's got a whole kind of upgrade system, and you earn the points for those upgrades by doing like stunts in the levels. So if you run across the top of a truck that's in midair, you get a bonus for that and all this sort of stuff. And this becomes the currency. The points you earn for that becomes the currency that you use to buy the power-ups. And the power-ups are really powerful and really fun, and they're quite sort of innovative as well. There's some fun ideas in there. There's like a gun you can get that fires trucks, so you can just launch a new truck into the level if you need a platform in a hurry. There's, you know, like, it's just brilliant. It's just like a really fun little game. I can't give it a particularly high score because, man, it's amateur hour in so many ways. But also, I can't hold that against it too much. Like, it's just a lovely thing.
That's kind of why I like Tiny Build as a publisher.
Yeah.
Because they find that they're games that, you know, they look on the outside and it's like, I was talking to Adam earlier about one of the sources for PC Review Keys, which is a website called Keymailer that I use, and it's just 90% garbage. I mean, there's so much crap on Steam that you need someone like a Tiny Build to find that thing that looks like it's absolute garbage, and then they play it and you realize there is something there. There is something there that's worth playing and worth, in their case, you know, publishing and promoting. And they do certainly find the weird little gems half the time, or at least maybe not the best games in the world, but games that have some worth to them. You know, purely on your video and your hilarious video review of it, I want to check out Cluster Truck. I'm probably going to give that a go. How much is Cluster Truck?
That is the one issue I have with it. It is £12.
Ooh.
It is $11.99, and I am not sure it justifies that price.
$11.99 for an unskinned Unity launcher. I'm not sure. If that's
it's like, you know what I mean, and like there's a pre-order incentive bundled with it. It's bundled with a thing called Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, which is also just a nonsense physics game where you just get to drop a load of dudes on a map and then they all run into each other, and anyone who falls over is dead, and it's just silly. But you get to, like, you know, launch catapults at things and stuff. Like I said, it's definitely like a silly little game. I'd probably, if I was really suggesting it to people as a purchase, probably wait for it to come down in price, because it definitely will.
It's a Steam sale, perhaps, because those never happen.
But at the same time, you know, the developers can charge what they want, and debating like how much a game should cost, you'll go insane.
The classic, there's a
the mathematics of it get complicated.
There's a reason I would try really hard not to talk about price when reviewing a game, because sometimes it's hard to avoid, and sometimes you want to say something like, you know, my God, for what you've got, that's an incredibly good price. But like, it's impossible. Yeah, like you said, it's impossible. You know, putting a price on art on someone's
the real issue, and this is something that maybe people don't think about as much as they should. Let's say you're selling your game for £5. If you sell your game for £6 instead, how many sales do you realistically lose? Probably not that many. Someone who wants to buy your game for £5 will probably buy it for £6. But for every 5 sales you make, you've made an extra sale in terms of your income. Do you see what I mean? Like, actually, the mathematics of where you price your game are sort of surprising until you really start working through them. And so
it's one of those
giving a lot of money away by charging too little for their games. Like,
it's one of those subjects, though, that there literally are economists that have dedicated entire careers to studying. Is what you've just mentioned. Like, you know, it's one of those. There is a dark science to it, but for fuck, I can't work it out. Like, most people couldn't work it out, I'd imagine. But yeah, it's an interesting subject. I'm now trying to desperately think of a segue from Cluster Truck to Jotun.
I've got one.
Go on.
Go on then.
Go on.
Speaking of game prices, Forza Horizon 3.
Speaking of, actually, I want to jump in. Speaking of funny game titles and game titles being thought of before the game, 2 years ago I was working in a company, and one of the developers there suggested that we should make a game about a pimp who's at the bottom of a tower block and is sending prostitutes up the tower block by means of hot air balloons. And that was something good. Go on. And that was something the game could be called Whores Are for Rising.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty good.
There was a title before the game. We tried to make it, but it got difficult.
Right, so that's what we call a three-way segue hijack.
Sorry.
Because I tried one, then Richard took mine, and Adam took that one. So that was a three-way segue hijack. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And then we're back on subject. Richard, you go on. Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to be talking by myself for about half an hour at the end of this podcast because I've got so many games to talk about. But yeah, go on.
Forza? Have you played it
yet? I did.
Of course you did. Of course you did. So Ben and I have just spent £80.
Yes, we have.
It's not worth so much after the referendum, but still, £80.
That's not that bad though. Do you not remember? Like, have you not looked at the special edition prices of a lot of games that get released today? And it's often closer to 100. I was actually looking at each.
You know what I did to justify it? Do you know what I did to justify it?
Did you add up the DLC price like I did?
No, I just thought back to Virtua Racing on the 32X.
That is the best justification ever.
I did that.
That was 70 quid, wasn't it? I'm sure that was 70 quid when that came out. And I thought, look, if anyone bought that for 70 quid, this is definitely worth 80, right?
There was hardware inside the cartridge to justify that price.
Well, what I did was I looked at the price of the DLC, and that came to about 50 quid. And I was like, well, you know, the game's 50 quid, so that's like 100 if I bought both bits, which I probably would. Like, so 80's better, isn't it? Yeah. And then I went on CD Keys and got 80 quid worth of credit for 72.
Yeah,
so I was just like, yeah, well, there you go, more savings. It's actually making me money. No, it's not. But you know, but it's one of those weird things where it's like you look at this and you're like, how many hours have I put into the Horizon games?
This is it. I think all the other Forzas, apart from 5, I've got them on sale at some point. So I thought, really, this is stunningly well polished. They should get a decent whack of money out of me for this.
I've only played the demo and now about 20 minutes of this, so I'm going to talk about it a lot more on the next podcast, I suspect, because I'll be doing the review as well. But
just on initial impressions, it's a massive upgrade, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I just think the setting is so much more compelling immediately. Yeah. And just that, that the sort of trailer / opening cinematic that launches that game. Yeah. I saw it with the demo and I saw it with the game, and both times it gave me tingles.
Yeah.
It just captures that vibe of the open road and the environment and that combination of the music and the cars. And it's like, I'm not even that much of a car guy, honestly. I mean, I like racing games, but I don't even drive in like real life. So it's
same here. Yeah,
there's something about those games, like, and that just gives me chills, man. It's like I'm literally doing this podcast with you guys right now, and I'm thinking, how much longer? Because I want to play. I need some Forza right now. Like, fuck off, you guys. Like, seriously.
So it's the sandbox kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's an open world racing.
The Horizon series are more of a sandbox experience.
Did either of you two play Test Drive Unlimited or Test Drive Unlimited 2? Is it like that, basically? Because I sank so much time.
That's the progenitor. Yeah. That was the one before Burnout Paradise, before the Forza Horizon series. Those were the guys that thought of it, and you can tell. I've actually listened to some interviews with the lead designer. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but 1010 are a UK studio, and it's is it Playground or is it Turn 10 that the UK one? I can't remember now.
Playground do
Playground is
Horizon games.
Right, thank you. Playground are a UK developer, and they just listened to him talking about how those games, the Burnouts, they've all influenced them. This is them cribbing all of that to make the best open world driving experience possible, and I think they've done it. Like, fantastic. Holy shit, it's just amazing.
The reason I mentioned Test Drive Unlimited is that, like, again, I'm kind of like you guys. I'm not really a car guy. I like driving games, but I'm not hugely into them. And I sank about 100 hours into Test Drive Unlimited 2, and I don't even know why, really. It was just really
a shanky, broken piece of shit, but at the same time, what an awesome idea. Like,
yeah, it was just great.
Fucking hell. And that's the feeling you have with this. And this is like, this location they've gone for in Australia is like this crushed together, compacted, but at the same time feels huge Australia that they've created for the game.
It's a clever setting because it gives them city racing and it gives them like huge open road through basically desert, which is like a nice contrast.
Yeah, like just in the demo, You kind of start on start on a nice open road highway. You go through some like rainforest. You end out on, then you go to the desert, and then you hit the sea, and you hit like the beach, and you're driving along the beach, and it's just like holy shit. And then you're into a town, and it's like they just get it all there, and it looks fucking amazing, and the lighting is so incredible. Like just the way that game looks. I mean, I don't even have HDR. I have an Xbox One S, but I don't have HDR. But I want it now because just the skybox and the light, everything about that way the game looks and sounds and handles and plays from my 10 minutes is just
and the
astounding.
water. For so long we've wanted water in Forza, and it's beautiful. Yep. It's so good. Have you seen the rain yet?
I was going to ask this. I was going to ask if there's weather.
Oh no, actually, I have seen the rain, because I remember looking to see if the droplets would travel up the windscreen, and they do.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed by that.
I'm going to be the GameSpot interviewer now. Like, is there weather effects? Is there how many cars in a race? I'm just interested to know the sort of technical.
One of the cool things they added with Horizon 2 was the Storm Island DLC. Which gave you this kind of rally-focused, like really heavy, bad torrential rain and storms, and like really, throwing all the crazy weather effects at you. But by changing the setting to Australia, they've given themselves a lot more freedom for sort of a natural development in weather and stuff like that in just one location. And they're going to do it. They're going for it. It looks amazing. I can't believe that game. How good that game is. It's just incredible. So I'm going to sink.
It doesn't just look good.
More hours.
There's so much to do. They've added stuff as well. I mean, you've got like GTA style big jumps now. Remember the big jumps from GTA? Those are in it now. I don't think they were there before. You've got the same old XP boards and fast travel boards where you can try and roam the map and find these billboards to smash down for extra XP. All sorts of different races as well. So you've got the classic Horizon races where you're competing against all sorts of weird things like airplanes and whatever. It's just loads of
stuff.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. Everything in it is fun. It just feels like it sends you round the houses, like to get to the next race and whatever. But everything in between feels like you want to do it.
Yeah.
You don't at any point ever want to fast travel. You just want to mess around.
So Richard, co-op story, as it were, because you can do the whole thing co-op, the campaign now.
Can you?
So you're up for some of that, jumping in?
Yeah.
But it's jump in, jump out. So basically, if I jumped into yours and did a race with you on one of your main races, I would then tick that off my list as well. And it's like, we can bum around. You can do convoys. Did you know you could have convoys in this? Where you can flag down other gamer tagged type drivers and get them to join you and help you do stuff. And man, I'm so up for living in that world. It's so cool, man. It's just so cool. But yeah, lots more, I imagine, to talk about that once I have a chance to dig on in. But now that you've hijacked my previous segue, I'm taking us to another actually really different but equally beautiful game. Now, Cameron has just done a review of Jotun for us on Xbox One, and I've actually played some Jotun as well, though not as much as Cameron. And I don't know if you guys watched the video, but that's got a beautiful 2D painterly style to it, absolutely stunning, with this kind of mixture of Dark Souls-esque, punishingly difficult combat, which is, it's got very simple combat. You basically you have this big two what are they called? What are the axes with blades on both sides called? There's a name for them, isn't it?
Well, people think it's battle axe, but it isn't.
Okay.
If you're going to engage with like medieval nerdery, they're just a two-headed axe.
Oh, that's boring.
The term battle axe does not refer to those.
I wanted a crazy name. Is that the best you've got for me?
There's basically no history of them existing except for ornamental purposes, because why would you want that? It is a terrible design for an axe. Yeah.
But anyway, this awesome Norse chick in Jotun has one, and she's just died and turned up in like this sort of area before Valhalla, and she has to basically prove her worth because she had an inglorious death. And to do that, she has to, you've got a light attack and a heavy attack, and that is it. You've got some runes that give you power-ups, but you work your way through this world, and you fight these Jotun, these giants, you know, of different types. So ice giants and earth giants, and you name it, they're in there. And it's Norse mythology writ large. And I think, you know, I'm not a Norse mythology expert, but I get the impression this is it's been developed in that part of the world where it's kind of their OG mythology. And I think this is pretty accurate. It seems very legit in what they're actually presenting. And it's done in the most stunning, beautiful kind of just way. And it's punishingly hard. It's not an easy game in any way, but it's rewarding. Like when you beat one of those bosses, like when you beat a boss in Dark Souls, you freaking earn it. You know, and much like playing Dark Souls, in my case, you die a lot, you die some more, and then you turn it off. But you know, I'm gonna give it another go. But I just thought I'd throw it out. Make sure you head over to the website and check out Cameron's full video review of Jotun, spelt Jotun, which again just makes it sound so legit, doesn't it? Before I sort of monologue for ages, Adam. Did you want to talk about Gremlins, which is a video game of a board game? If you're not particularly feeling it, don't worry about it.
It's not enough feeling. I don't know how to make it interesting, really. Like, it is a video game of a board game. I don't like when I first started playing it. I assumed this must be a real board game that someone's just made a software like adaptation of. And if you search on YouTube, you can find someone unboxing a set of cards from the game. And so I assumed, like, oh, yeah, this is like some Kickstarter board game and they've done like a spin-off video game. Then I looked into it some more and I'm not sure that's the case. I think, to be honest, like, and this is where I'm guessing now, like, so full disclosure, I am guessing. My guess would be they designed a board game. They intended to make it in cardboard. They took it to some publishers. Board game publishers are obviously a bit more choosy because they have to actually make the thing out of plastic and cardboard, which costs real money. Whereas software producers and publishers just have to basically let you use some of their resources. Like, they just say yes, and then they get it onto Steam for you through their account. So I'm guessing this ended up becoming a software board game just because it couldn't become a real board game, because there's nothing here that you couldn't do in cardboard. Like, they're not doing any kind of effects or systems that would be overcomplicated in a video game. Like something like XCOM 2, which I'm a huge fan of, that is definitely a board game, but you wouldn't want to play XCOM on a dining room table because there's way too many mathematics and checks, and you know, like the systems are just too complicated, and it would be a miserable experience to actually play without a computer to do all the work for you. Gremlins is not that. Gremlins definitely, like, you could do it as a real board game. But like, yeah, it's a board game. It's a really nice adaptation of a board game. I don't really like the board game. Like, if I was reviewing the board game exclusively, I would have to say I think there's some problems in the design of it. I think it's got a real problem with where the game ends, and I think it's probably just too chaotic. It's a game that wants you to make complex plans all the time, but it's impossible for those complex plans to survive until your next turn, because everyone changes everything every time they do anything. So you just never really know what you're supposed to be doing. Anything you plan gets dismantled within seconds. So, you know, it is what it is. I really like the way they've actually implemented it as a software board game. Like, you know, this is how board game adaptations should be. It's just, unfortunately, I don't really like the board game they've adapted. So I gave it 3 stars and it was fine.
Do you know what? I'm reviewing a board game, video game as well at the minute, and I'm struggling a little bit with it. I got Armello.
Armello? Oh.
Yeah, which you may have heard of.
I have heard of it.
Now that feels very much like a board game that could only exist as a video game.
Yeah.
But oh man, I did the tutorials. I've tried to play the game a few times. I'm really struggling, Adam. It's got some incredibly complex mechanics that are very specific to characters, to the situations, to the moments. I feel like it's the kind of game that would reward me really sticking with it. It looks lovely. I mean, it's got a great visual style to it. It's got this... I'm not a big fan of the furry-esque art style of the characters. Sexy bunnies don't do it for me. But I know they do it for some people. But yeah, it's just got so many mechanics, which is clearly why it couldn't be a real board game, because it's just like kitchen sink style. Like, it's got cards, you can burn them, you can cast them, you can apply them to your character. You've got about 4 trillion different types of dice. you've got combat systems and trading mechanics, and you've got these fucking summoning things, and you've got the rot that's progressing, and you need to take out the king, or you can take the king by becoming the most influential, or you can do it through magic and manipulation, or you can do it like this or like that, depending on the character. And then your character that you choose, there's 4 different types of class, and each different class plays differently, and it's like they've all got different strengths and weaknesses, and there's about 14 different types of currency and expendable units, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? It's so confusing. I played the tutorial. The tutorial is broken down into 4 different sections, where each section is a specific character, and it's also telling a narrative that sets up the game in its joy. It's a really nicely done tutorial. The tutorial takes about 2 hours across all 4 of them. It's so long because there's so many things, and it's just I'm just like. And then I tried to play the game with what seems to be the simplest class, which is like this combat-focused guy that, you take out the other characters, you're aggressive. But even then, it's like, the other thing that frustrates me a little bit is, you have to sit through the turns of all the other players, even when they're AI, and you're sat there waiting and waiting and waiting. And I feel like Armello would play really well with real people if you're sat around, around the control, the console yourselves in person. That would be fun. But then why not just play a real board game? I don't know, because a real board game has a tactile interaction to it that makes it a special experience. If I got friends around to play board games, I'd want to play a fucking board game, not a video game of a board game. But anyway, I just don't know how I feel about it, Adam. That's why I've not put a review out yet. I'm not the right person for it, but sadly it was an Xbox code. If it had been a PC code, you would have had it straight fucking away. But
I say, looking at it, it looks like it would be up my street, but I can also see, again, it's taking a lot of things from modern board games, and if you're unfamiliar with all of those, completely, it looks like it would be a bit of a head crusher to try and get your brain around.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But I'm looking at here. I see the Steam rating is 9 out of 10. With 2,500 reviews. I feel like I might be missing something. But maybe they're all board game geeks. I'm not the biggest board gamer. I mean, for no particular reason. I'm not that guy. I've never had the time. But yeah, I kind of want to like it because it's nicely designed, and you can tell there's been a lot of effort put into it, and there's, the visuals are very polished, even if they're not quite my artistic cup of tea. And it's just like, bloody hell. I'm going to give it another shot, but it might have to get pushed to the back of the backlog for getting looked at some point in the future, because I don't have the time. But yeah, so I've been playing board games too. Richard, have you played any board games?
I haven't played any board games. Sorry.
It's a bit of a letdown, frankly. Richard, try harder for next time. This is now the board game podcast. Didn't you know?
I am the cool one of the podcast, so
you're too cool for board games. Board games are cool as shit now. Everyone's all into them now. They're the new thing in geek culture.
Oh, I don't know. From what I can tell, that bubble's already burst. But that's it seems to be on decline already. Didn't last very long. Yeah. Right, I'm going to use this moment to give a shout out to some of the guys we haven't talked about. We talked about Lyndon's review already, and we talked about Cameron's review, one of his reviews that he's done already. But I want to mention that Stephen did Resident Evil 4, and surprisingly, it was the best of the re-releases. What a shock! We all surprised that Resident Evil 4 is still amazing? No, nobody is surprised, are we? And Rob looked at a little game called Rive, which I've been seeing getting quite positive write-ups. It looked balls hard, though, from some of the videos I've watched. As that kind of shooter, it looks really tough. But it got some cool mechanics, like hacking and controlling robots in it. That would be your little AI buddies. And some cool ideas in there with a Mega Man-esque vibe going on. I don't know. That's cool. PS4 only though, so I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I wouldn't mind having a go at some point.
It's sort of funny how many games market themselves as being like Mega Man, thinking that's a really good thing. I can't think of a sentence that puts me off a game faster.
Yeah, I'm the same. I do not have that.
It's like that really well side-on 2D thing that I've never been able to play because it's impossibly difficult. Okay, I won't buy your game then.
I've never been the Mega Man guy. That's never been my jam at all. But some people fucking love that.
You're just putting a badge on the front of the box that says Adam can't play this. So all right.
Right, and okay. I played some Dead Rising. I played a lot of Dead Rising actually because there's 3 of them in the triple pack. And you know what? I'm not going to bang on about that for too long. If you guys remember Dead Rising, you guys played some Dead Rising over the years?
Yeah.
We all remember the first game, which was this wacky almost comedy take on a zombie apocalypse.
Well,
Awesome. Yeah, but almost. But like, let me get there. I'm not done. It starts off that way. You think it's Frank, he's this schlubby. You know, I've covered wars. You know, it's got this terrible bloody English dialogue, which is clearly not been written by an English speaker, which is brilliant, and I love that corniness to it. And then it's like, oh yeah, you taking pictures, this is silly, and it's the mall like you remember from Dawn of the Dead. And then, oh, you can only save in toilets. What now? Oh, okay, and you've got a time limit. Oh, what? This is weird. What's going on? Oh, okay, this is strange. This is unlike any game I've ever really played before back in 2006, which is when it originally came out. And the game you have here in the chalk bag, it's the same game that came out in 2006. It just looks a little cleaner, but it doesn't look really prettier. It's just up-resed. But it's, you know, bells, you know, nothing's changed really. It's that same game. And if you have a hankering or nostalgia for that punishing gameplay, which I do, which I found really endearing, because when I played that originally, I had a strategy. You know, you do a leveling up run through. So you'd go through and you just get the PP. You do the best pictures possible. You do the psychos. You try and get that sort of stuff, but you wouldn't look at the story at all. So you'd level up Frank to the best you could make him, and then you'd do a story run through. And then you'd get a certain ending, and you'd be like, I want a different ending. So you'd do another story run through with an even better character, and so on and so forth, with a brilliantly built-in replay mechanic that is quite unique to those series of games. I really like that. And then Chuck came along in Dead Rising 2, and we got a similar thing, time constraints, same saving restrictions, but we had weapons customization, which was cool, wasn't it? And guess what? It's still a lot of fun. And then Dead Rising 2 Off the Record happened, which is actually the one I hadn't played the first time round, which inserts Frank West into Dead Rising 2. And it works surprisingly well, actually. And seeing Frank as this guy who became really famous and popular and then fell from grace, like horrendously, to the point where he's like on this crappy reality TV show to try and make a bit of cash, right? And he is schlubbier and more pathetic and fatter and more balding than ever. It's like the difference between young Bruce Willis and old Bruce Willis. And it's so funny and it's great. And I'm glad that character's back before. I'd forgotten how much I liked Frank West. Because he's covered wars, you know. Serious photojournalist. Respect Frank West. Yeah, so that's, you know, those are those games. You liked them before, you'll like them again. And if you haven't played them before, which I guess is possible if you've, you know, not owned a games console since this generation or something, they are quite unique zombie slaying action. You know, they're really different and hard, which, you know, hard like you don't get from games nowadays, which is just quite nice. And then you wanted to ask about them, Adam. You seem like a fan yourself.
So I was a fan of Dead Rising 1, although I slightly disagree with what you said. Well, so the thing about Dead Rising 1 that's sort of interesting is that on the one hand, it is this comedy zombie shopping mall game where you do daft things and you dress yourself up in like children's clothing and you run around beating zombies up with tennis rackets and bowling balls and all the rest of it. And then you like go into the jewelers for the first time, and there's a woman in there who is weeping, and in a little cutscene, she describes listening to the screams of her baby as the zombies ate it alive. And you go, wow, your tone is fucking all over the place here, guys.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
What are you making? Like, you don't know what you're doing. And Dead Rising 2 and 3, they went obviously far more kind of comic book and far more silly. And that darkness, like, was removed entirely. And I'm not even saying necessarily I think that was a mistake, but I definitely never liked Dead Rising 2 as much as I liked Dead Rising 1. Dead Rising 1 felt like a game that like delivered something really unique and like and was fun to play in all sorts of different ways. Dead Rising 2 felt like yawn, get to the really cool weapons we've invented. Look, we've thought of like chainsaws tied to a rowing oar, so look, that's really cool. It's like a gladiator pugil stick, but with chainsaws. It's funny, etc., etc. And it felt like it lost something in that process. Now, and that put me off enough that I never really played the third. It's also worth mentioning that the boss fights in Dead Rising is a series of games that has the biggest problem with most of the gameplay really fun, every boss fight utterly tedious, totally not fun. You hate them with all your heart because they just get in the way of what was otherwise an enjoyable game. And often there's like mechanical changes as well, where it's slightly cheats in the boss fights.
I like the psychos. I like the psychos because I think They're super over the top, and as is always the case, you know, the real threat of the zombie apocalypse is not the zombies.
Oh yeah, sure.
Other
Like,
humans.
that's good, but like design a boss fight that isn't utterly tedious. Then
I agree with what you said about that first game. It was experimental. You know, it was definitely experimental, and it was Capcom trying something new. Which, let's be honest, Capcom doesn't do that often anymore, which is a real shame because they have that crazy tone. Like we're talking about, this is a Japanese take on a Western phenomenon, which is what the first Dead Rising is. So it is really weird, like from weird dialogue to weird characters to weird settings to weird, the incongruity between the violence and the comedy. They're doing things like, you know, you're a photojournalist, and how can you get the most PP points? Can you take a sexy photo of a zombie?
Yeah, zombie upskirts. They get
what the fuck, man? It's the strangest sort of like leftover remnant of early 2000 game design. It's like you can see how far things have moved on now because you couldn't get away with that shit now, could you? No fucking way could you make that now.
There would be trouble. I think.
Yeah. But like it's just such a strange game, and it's still probably Dead Rising 1 is still my favorite of the series thus far. And I just forgotten how much I like Frank West. He's great. He should show up in other things.
I'm surprised he has.
It's a crossover,
I'm surprised he's never turned up in a Resident Evil as a sort of Easter egg cameo or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. It'd be great.
He's in the Marvel versus Capcom games, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't even remember that. No, fair it is. I don't remember. I never played a lot of those, so that might be why I don't remember theirs that well. Okay, deep breath. 2 more to go. These were both... I'm going to kind of bundle these two together because they're both fucking great, and I do want to talk about them. I'm actually not going to talk about one of the games I've covered because there's been so many, but I'm going to cut one off the end. But yeah, these two I played quite a lot by myself, and then even more with my wife because they are brilliant couch co-op games. So first of all, it was Worms WMD. This is probably the best Worms games I've played in many, many, many years. It's 2D, it's Guys, it's Worms, right? Do I need to tell you, if you're listening or watching, what the fuck Worms is? If I do, find a different website. Like, seriously. If you've never seen Worms, it's, you know, classic, turn-based, side-on, 2D combat, right? It's basically a thing that created a genre, which is Worms, and it's hilarious, and it's still so much fun, and it's still so silly, and you've got all these crazy weapons, and now in Worms WMD, you can get into vehicles and mounted weapons and stuff, which is, I didn't ever feel the need for that, but guess what? They pull it off. It works really, really well. You've got loads of maps, you've got loads of customization, you've got a lot of single-player stuff, but of course, Worms is all about the couch-based adversarial combat. Torturing your friends as you take your last worm and bury him deep in the center of the ground with girders and all this shit, so nobody can get him without them coming in, teleporting in, and you've placed loads of mines, haven't you?
That gets you a serious punch in the arm in my ears. Dark side skull.
That's how I play Worms, baby. That's how I do it. If I'm on the way out, I'm going to make you come to me, and I'm going to make you pay.
Terrible.
Yes.
It did make me laugh when I saw your video review that this is a Worms game in which you can get into a tank. This is, talk about full circle. This is like, you know,
why not?
Pure cannibalization, given that the original Worms was a clone of like tank games.
Yeah, I love it.
We've added tanks to Worms.
It's great. It works really well. I mean, it's completely pointless. It's just like giving you a bigger gun. It doesn't really add anything to the gameplay other than you're in a vehicle now. Why not? And there's helicopters as well, which are quite fun, and other things. But, you know, I was enjoying playing the classic mode, right, with the classic selection of weapons that I recognize. But if you go full Wormage, I believe as they describe it, or something to that effect, it's like, here's every weapon that's ever been in a Worms game, and then some more.
Wow.
And it's like, this is just, I'm like spoiled for choice. One thing they introduced that's cool is a crafting mechanic, so that when you're waiting for your, you know, your other friends to play, you can actually be doing something. You can bring up the crafting menu. You can be like, oh, I don't want that gun or that gun. I can destroy that. I can get some parts, and I can make an awesome gun, and I can use that on my next turn, which is pretty cool. That's a nice idea for, like, you know, the biggest problem ever with any board game or turn-based game is what do you do while you're waiting for the other players? So having something like that, you know, helps. It helps you think about it a bit more strategically. It's really cool. Fair. But you know what's even better than Worms, guys? 5-star review this was. Overcooked. Oh my god, Overcooked is good. Like, I only play this with one other person, but I'm desperate to play it with 4 people in total. It's a cooking game. It's a cooking game with starts off quite simple recipes, and you have to go and you have to do things like get the vegetable, take it out, put it on the chopping board, chop up the vegetable, put the vegetable in the pan, cook the vegetable, put the vegetable that you've now cooked, the stir fry, shall we say, onto a plate, put the plate on the pass. The plate then comes back, and then you have to wash up the plate, and then you have to start it all over again. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it?
It sounds like the lyrics of a Parappa song.
It does, yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll wrap that next time. We'll write that down. But yeah, it sounds really simple, but it becomes chaos. Absolute, brilliant, hilarious chaos with crazy map designs. Everything from a normal kitchen to a kitchen while there's an earthquake and it gets split in half. A kitchen on two sides of moving trucks that move apart from each other while you're trying to cook things. That's a challenge. And just more and more and more. And it gets crazier. And the recipes get more, complex. And you're just juggling. It's literally spinning plates almost. Yeah. It's such a simple concept. But the art style, the music, the crazy batshit insane time travel story, it's just daft, stupid, brilliantly polished, brilliant core mechanics. Just so much fun. Like, if you have the opportunity to play that with friends, I tell you what, playing it by yourself kind of sucks. It's just too much. In your review, you did say it's basically unplayable in single player. Yeah, basically, yeah. It became so hard so quick that I was just like, no, this is fucking. I'm just gonna wait till I have time to play with a wife. And then I did, and it was like, oh no, this is the game. This is the whole idea of this game is playing with people. You start coming up with strategies. Like you take that side of the kitchen. I want you to do the washing up, get it on the pass, and finish the cooking. I will do the chopping, getting the vegetables, and I will put them on, and I will move them over here. It's ready for you to put into this. And I'm just trying to imagine what that would be like with 4 people. That'd be amazing. Can you just imagine all of you shouting at each other? You've had a few beers, and you're trying to cook a burger amongst 4 people in a kitchen during an earthquake.
That sounds amazing.
It's amazing. It's fucking mind-blowingly good. It doesn't even have an online option because they know that shit's not going to work. Right, you need to be in the same room, and you need to have people to play that game. If it's as a party game, God, it's so good, so good. I'm tired. Anybody got anything else they would like to chat about?
I don't think I've played anything else. Looking at this Overcooked, it does look like what is that really, really old game that is ripped off from? Burger Time?
Cake Mania? It reminded me of Cake Mania.
There's quite a few hectic cooking games, aren't there? I mean, that's not a new concept, I don't think, is it? But
it's not. I think the first one was probably Burger Time. I think that was a 2600 game.
Burger Time was running on ladders and dropping huge burgers on, like Mr. Pickle and an egg that chased you around. Burger Time was upside on then. Okay.
Wasn't there Cooking Mama? Is it like Cooking Mama? I've never played Cooking Mama.
No, there's something really old where you got to make burgers and stuff. I don't know. Root Beer Tapper was something similar as well.
Root Beer Tapper, it reminds me of, yeah. I can see a bit of that.
Yeah.
But this is 4-player co-op, which...
Yeah. I mean, it looks great. Like, I'd love to play it, but I definitely wouldn't want to play it single player.
Sorry, pausing for beer there. I don't normally score games that are, only good in multiplayer that highly, because I feel like, that's not necessarily fair. I mean, but, man, it just works so damn well, it did feel special, unique. Like they captured the essence of cooking, and yet this hectic party atmosphere. I really love the music in it. It builds really brilliantly. It's got just a great beat to it, and it really helps you. You get into a rhythm, and it really kind of helps you actually do the tasks. It's just so fucking polished. It's even got this cool overworld map, which I just had fun. You have a little bus for some reason, and you drive around between the nodes that you have to do the next kitchen and stuff. And each kitchen you unlock through stars, like you do in those games. You get 1, 2, 3 stars, blah blah blah. That's all very conventional. But you can drive. You free drive, so you can just drive anywhere on the map in your little bus, and it just looks so cool, and it's just so dumb. And why did they make that? It could have just been a linear selection of levels, but they made this overworld which you can drive around. And it's just that's unnecessary, but cute and fun and awesome, and just why the fuck not? And you can pick your chefs, right? And one of the chefs I unlocked, which made my wife super happy, was a cat. Would you want a cat as a chef? You'd be getting hair and all the food. No, you wouldn't. But it's amazing having a cat chef. He's so cute. And the whole game is cute. And you're doing this for the Onion Kingdom, led by the Onion King, who helps you travel through time because you fail the first mission, which is to save the world from this evil broccoli monster that you're feeding salad, but it's not good enough. And he's like, no, you must travel back in time to 1990 something and learn how to be a good chef. Sure, why not? Let's do it.
There's a faint whiff of Adventure Time to some of that as well in there. Like when
Don't mention Adventure Time. I
thought
hate
it was a
Adventure
bit
Time.
Adventure Time-ish. Right? I'm sorry, I think there's a certain Adventure Time aesthetic to this.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you because I only like Rick and Morty. I don't like Adventure Time.
All right, fine.
So, do you not like Rick and Morty, Adam?
No, I like Adventure Time. Adventure Time is great.
So you picked one side in the war.
That's the war we have to fight now? I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
Rick and Morty, which is this hilarious, brilliant comedy pastiche of like science fiction, really intelligently written by Dan Harmon, the guy who writes Community. But you've picked Adventure Time, which is about a fucking talking fucking dog.
It's also about Dungeons and Dragons, and it's about fantasy tropes, and it just becomes this really silly character comedy that's just really enjoyable. I
agree, Ben.
Oh, right. Not you as well, then.
Rick and Morty's awesome. Thumbs up. But yeah, we could do we're not. This isn't the animation show. Otherwise, I'd start talking about how much I'm enjoying South Park's current season as well. Which I'm but there you go. I think Richard, have you got anything else you wanted to chuck on in there?
No, looking forward to playing Witness and talking about that next time. I've got something else as well, haven't I? The Turing test. So
that was it. I knew there was something else. I gave you that. Yeah.
I watched the Let's Play of that. I watched the Let's Play of that all the way through, so I know about that game. That's good.
So you've got two really hard puzzle games.
Yeah.
You enjoy that back to back. Obviously, games like I'm going to be playing loads of Forza. Gears of War's like what, a week away?
Yeah,
2 weeks away?
Like 10 days, I think.
10 days away. That'll be, I'm sure, on its way, and we'll.
My limited Gears for Xbox One S will be in the post before the next
podcast. But you won't be allowed to play it because it's a Christmas present.
No. Well, I can get Gears. I'll have Gears 4 to play, so I can play you at that.
Okay, that's cool. We're definitely get some of that. But yeah, god damn it, man. There's so many games. Like, there'll be a lot more for us to talk about, and there'll be a lot more videos and a lot more awesome written content. And we will be back in 2 weeks, barring act of demigod, Satan, Donald Trump. Who knows? Act of Trump. Yeah. But don't worry, because Jeremy Corbyn will save us all.
God, don't stop me.
No.
Oh,
time to switch parties, Adam. The watered down Tories.
To who?
Yeah, exactly. Switch parties to what? There are no choices. None. Oh, it's so upsetting. But let's not
switch countries.
There is a choice. There is a choice.
Yeah, Sweden. That's the choice.
I like that. Sweden. That sounds good right now. Let's go to Sweden. Me and you could live in a sauna in Sweden somewhere. That'd be nice. Be a bit warm, but it'd be nice. Right. That's the end of the podcast. That's the end of episode 10 of Bxb'S and Bobs. You can find Bxb on and at bxbgames.co.uk and on Twitter at bxbgames and on Facebook at bxb/bxbgames. Yeah, you get the idea. It's called Bxb Games. That's where we are. Also, you can find Richard at where?
You can find me at Colonel Red on Twitter. I'm also Colonel Red on Xbox Live, but remember the space between the words.
And you can find Adam where?
I am at Adam Breeden Dev on Twitter, and I'm also doing that RimWorld playthrough still. Please watch it. I desperately need to justify the countless hours I have spent recording video for that thing. It gets really good. I think it starts a bit ropey, but I think it ends up leading to some very, very funny.
That's right. That's how to sell it, Adam. Say it starts shit. You'll have to get through a few episodes of crap, and then it will get good. You dick. It's plenty good to start with.
But also, keep watching it. Don't just watch one episode and go, "Well, that was bollocks," and not come back. Like, honestly, it gets better. I promise.
Well, join the BXB Club on Xbox and the whatever it's called on PlayStation as well. We're getting some members there, but I mean, it might be difficult on Xbox if you're not a preview member yet, so you wouldn't have it yet. But that will open up shortly, I would imagine. Oh, I am going to go and play some Forza and look at the long list of games you still have to play, and that's what we're going to be doing. Games. More games coming in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.